Good
Good
to go,
afternoon.
Paul.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Griffiths, Vice Chairman of the International Institute of Risk and Safety Manager Welsh Branch. Andrew Prothero is the chairman, and we've got a committee. And as a group, we're trying to raise the profile of the branch in Wales. We're offering mentorship opportunities and other webinars. Andrew's already done one last month, so there's great growth going on at the moment with our branch. Today, I'm going to run through neurodiversity in the workplace, and I'm going to explain about my late diagnosis of autism. It's come to be officially February the 20th this year. Also going to touch on leadership and the qualities needed. Throughout, there's an option to ask questions. So you can ask questions in a Q&A section. And also there's a section, I think, where you can raise a hand just to ask a question. We were thinking of just asking these at the end if I was okay. I'm just going to start by giving a bit of a background. So for 20 years, I've been at Greenhat. I worked for Greenhat Consulting. I've been with Greenhat for 5 years. Prior to that, for 20 years, I was a print department manager, done a little bit of health and safety. In those 20 years, I knew that the job didn't really suit me. I was a manager. I had a decent enough role. I struggled a lot in that job, to the point where every day I used to say to my wife, before leaving for work, I go back into that place of work. The routine suited me, and I was comfortable in my job, but I always knew there was a struggle. I had a chance to take redundancy. I had to reapply for my job, so didn't reapply. I called it a leap of faith, and I jumped into an opportunity from the manager director at Greenhat, Andrew Warren, to have a chance, consultancy work on health and safety. So I put a lot of effort into learning the new job, and I feel as if I've gone from going to a house to work to home to work. And I think what I'm trying to get at is what I've been provided in my role is psychological safety, which is massive. I don't think it could be underestimated. In my role, it's all about the team. As the great Rudyard Kipling says, that the strength of the wolf is the pack, strength of the pack is the wolf. I don't think that could be underestimated. To the point where, by pure coincidence, today is August the 1st, 2024, where the webinar was set for. Today, if you look at the screen, you'll see Paul Griffiths, Health, Safety, Environmental Director. So today, I've officially been made up to Director. It's quite an astonishing achievement, because you'll see it throughout this webinar, some of the weaknesses that I do have. But a lot of pride in that, to get that level. So back to the Tang Dynasty, we're going all the way back 600s AD. There was an emperor that emphasized a wise ruler should be able to identify and appoint the right people to the right positions. What he stated, just as a carpenter uses straight timber to make shafts, curved timber to make wheels, long timber to make beams, and short timber to make posts, a ruler should recognize the unique strengths and abilities of individuals, assign them roles where they can excel. So this approach ensures the empire is well governed. It also highlights the importance of understanding and valuing diverse talents and skills of people within the administration. I think what we're going to run through just doesn't suit people with different neurodiversities. It kind of suits leadership for every person in the company. It's all about the importance of selecting the right individuals for specific tasks. Much like a skilled carpenter knows how to use different types of wood for various purposes. And we've got the Olympics on at the moment. I'm thinking that in the Olympics, in the past Olympics, where Usain Bolt ran 100 meters, Jamaica picked him for the 100 meters. If they picked him for the 5,000 meters, they would have been picking someone for failure. So they obviously knew that he's a sprinter, he suits the 100 meters, suits the 200 meters. Could have picked him for 5,000, would have been a total disaster. It's all about making sure people in the right roles for their talents. So what is neurodiversity? It's quite a reasonably new sort of term. It is said it's coined by Judy Singer in 1998, and it kind of acknowledges the unique brain development in each person. It describes individuals whose cognitive functions differ from societal norms. We'll run through a couple of different types of conditions. Under the Equality Act 2010, some of these differences may be classified as disabilities, highlight the need for workplace awareness and accommodations. To emphasize the neurodiverse conditions are not deficits, but differences. Some prefer to describe them as personal strengths contributing to their professional success. And sometimes the language used around neurodiversity should avoid negative connotations, opt for difference over condition or disorder when possible. These are just some examples of neurodiversity. So dyslexia. Hayden, one of our committee members of the Welsh branch, has recently been diagnosed as dyslexia. He told me his own story of now understanding himself better, and it's provided him with great strength going forward. ADHD is another variant, dyspraxia. I'm going to be talking about autism. I've got a grandson who's got Tourette syndrome. It's another neurodiversity. At the age of 10, he was 10 stone, bullied in school, not just for having tics and Tourette's, but also for being overweight. He took up boxing to such an extent that he's now 20 and he's a professional boxer. He actually uses his neurodiversity to his strengths. So part of Tourette's syndrome is abundance of energy, which he's got, kind of suits his boxing. He's a real character. You do get a lot of humor with Tourette's, and that comes across in some of his press conferences he gives. And Tourette's can give very creative. He's actually a very good artist as well. So it's all about strengths. Sometimes we focus too much on the weaknesses, but we will find today there's a lot of strengths in different neurodiversity types. So some neurodiversity facts and figures. So autism, approximately 700,000 adults in the UK are autistic. Autism, 1 in 68 young people are now being diagnosed with autism. Tourette's, 1 to 2% of the population have Tourette's. Dyspraxia, at least 1 in 17. Dyslexia, 1 in 10. Overall, it's estimated neurodivergence is 1 in 7 people. So it's a lot of people in the UK potentially will have some sort of neurodivergence. And unfortunately, you see down the bottom, mental health, 14% of the population have mental health needs, and that could be an adverse effect of these types of conditions. Just going to run through my own story, really. So, great quote by Tony Wagner: assessment is not the conclusion of a journey, but the gateway to self-discovery. So my own self-discovery, prolific reader. I can't put books down wherever I am in the house. I got something to read. My wife will go in the bathroom. It must be a nightmare for a wife. Wherever she goes in the bathroom. There'll be a book or a Kindle. She'll go in the living room. I'll have something else. So I've always read, always needed information from my brain. And then it was during one of the first COVID lockdowns where I'd exhausted my Kindle apps, and I was on an Australia magazine, and I was reading a story about this Australian gentleman who explained that he needs to do this, this, and this, and he found out late in life, at the age of 60, that he had autism. And I read it, and it was literally the stars aligned, light bulb moment. I thought, oh, I do all that. That's what I must have. So my wife came home from work, and I explained to her, I think I've finally found out why I'm a little bit different to the average person. Done an online test. It's the Simon Barr and Cohen from Cambridge University test, where you complete a questionnaire. I think it's out of 50, and if you score X amount, you're probably going to be on the spectrum. I had a distinction, probably something I didn't want the distinction in, but I had 42 out of 50. So my next step was, where do I take it? That was just an initial screening tool. So I managed to get hold of a local centre which I could send this report off to, and they give me further tests to do, and I got put onto the waiting list. So what actually happened, this was over 3 years ago now, you do go through an emotional cycle, I did find. I'm not sure if everyone goes through this, when you suddenly find out the reason why you are different in life. It was a little bit like the grief cycle. I went through shock and denial, bit of pain, a lot of guilt, do feel a bit of guilt of, oh, that's why I had to do this or that. There's a little bit of anger and bargaining, bit of depression, then you upward turn, do reconstruct your life, and there's a little bit of acceptance and hope. So what actually happened with me was a 2-year wait. It was over 2 years, it was 2.5 years. So it was February this year, I got called in by my official psychiatrist, who goes through a 2.5 hour interview really. This was in a place called Neath in South Wales. It's quite unconventional. I don't think the test has changed for the last 11 years. It's a little bit childlike in how the test is undertaken. And I read some stories about flying frogs. There was times where you think there's cameras on you watching you because you think this can't be right. And they make up stories with little pieces of cars, and at the end of it, you have to wait. There's a lot of anticipation. There's another 4 or 5 days, and then the report comes through. The report is quite brutal. It's comprehensive. I ended up with a 12-page report on all my weaknesses. It was some things in the report I didn't even know what it meant, things like executive functioning, but it kind of puts my whole life in order, and gives me great strength going forward. So my mindset completely changed over the last few years through my self-diagnosis and my official report, where I now focus on my strengths and uniqueness rather than what I can't do. I did unmask. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of the term masking, but I've obviously masked for five centuries now, being in my mid-50s. So I've had to mask my whole life without realizing it. So from a young age, just to adapt and be around people, I've had to mask. What I did notice after having my report, I kind of must have just weakened that mask a bit. And if I'm honest, for about 3 weeks, my mind went a bit of mush. I had to quickly go and get my full masking back because I couldn't function without it. I think it's just something that's now part of me. So just to explain some personal traits, they do say if you met someone with autism, we would all be slightly different. Might all have some of these, but to different levels. So if I start in the bottom right-hand corner, masters a routine. So my routine is ridiculous. Even trying to explain it is hard, because every day I get up at 3:30 without fail. It doesn't change. 365 days a year. Up at 3:30. I'll go for a morning run. I'll come back, shower. I'll walk my dog Frankie up a mountain. Come back, breakfast, into work, do my day in work. I'll go home. I'll walk the dog. I cycle or indoor turbo bike. Have my dinner, and I'm probably in bed by 7:30 because I got to get back up tomorrow 3:30. So I've got a similar day, but it's a different time span of my day. Not socially driven. So one of the best things I've done after my diagnosis was I went home and cleared my wardrobe. So charity shop, I had all my old suits, because I used to think I might be selfish by not going to social events, but kind of changed the narrative. Is self-preservation is the word. So I've got to look after myself really. I'm only here once, so I don't do social events. Don't even push myself anymore. So if I get an invite to a wedding, thank God for the invite. Hope they have a fantastic day. Here's a card, here's a present, but I won't be attending. Kind of poor social skills. I'm not so low on that one. Detail oriented. I think what does happen with autism, you can really fully engrossed in what you're doing, to such as extent when I do certain NVQs, I'm so engrossed that if even on a weekend when I'm doing a course, I forget to eat because I'm just so engrossed in what I'm actually doing. Persistence is one. I do get very persistent in things. Obviously, over time, it might have developed some different mental health problems. Been quite lucky, I think. I've always worked quite hard on myself to improve my mental health. But I do understand that it's an ongoing challenge, something I've got to keep working to. Creative intellectual interests. I'm not so creative, really. I have got intellectual interests, though. And I can memorize. So my whole day is visual. So I've got different mind, I believe, to the average person. I take a lot of images throughout the day. So my mind is like a camera, really, constantly taking pictures, and it does store a lot of those pictures. What a lot of this has done, so master routine, what that did do, it did take me to Welsh international level for running. Now I look back on my life, it wasn't so much that I was a fantastic distance runner, it was just I was never going to miss my routine. So I was always quite fit, probably fitter than the average runner. So I ended up having 7 Welsh vests, run decent times. I was never going to get to Olympics, but for anyone who's ever run a 5K, I've run a 15-minute, 18-second 5K, and for 10K, I've run a 31-minute 10K. Average times really for top level, but it did get me to a decent standard. Now, what I did find through learning that I got such a visual mind, and I really did it. Done a lot of courses over the last 5 years, and I did find the education training level 3 and level 5 a lot of benefit because I learned about the VARC model. It's a fantastic model to understand in how we all think and learn differently. So VARC stands for visual learners, the A is auditory learners, the R is read write, and the K is kinesthetic. When I was a print department manager, I think because of the way my mind worked, I used to always have the safe systems of work and all documents alongside each machine, how to start it, safety features. I'd always make the room very visual. And I think that was more my style, but I think it did actually help the operators. So my visual style comes from, I'm able to recite a lot of information through memorizing. Got particular interest going back to autism, to history. So I could tell you every king and queen from 757 AD to the present day, be 64, 65 of those in order, forwards or backwards. Well, every American president, forward or backwards. And it's kind of like a cheat system, really. So I recently done a course in fire, the level 5 in fire. And I need to know more than the actual course gave me. So I actually go into a bit more depth because I want to understand all the BS numbers. So the way my system would work, and if anyone ever wants some training on this, I'm more than happy to give a bit of a session, is I break down the numbers 1 to 99 to people. So an example would be Edmund Hillary, the old climber, is in my system is 58. So when I want to learn the BS numbers, I actually use this office block that I work in. So I come into the office block, I see a fire alarm on the wall. So if I want to know the BS number for our fire alarm, I see Edmund Hillary, and there's a set of steps just by the fire alarm, 39 steps. So it's quite a simple system in my mind. It's BS EN 5839. That's fire alarm. It's Edmund Hillary, going to climb some steps. And this is the way I keep going. So everything from in the marathon, the Olympic marathon this year is going to be a gentleman called Emil Caress. So he's my fire extinguishers. So if I want to know the BS number for fire extinguishers, it's Emil Caress, 53. And he's throwing the fire extinguishers to a second row for Wales, 06, 5306. Sounds complicated. It's a bit of a cheat when you get to know how it works, but that's the way my mind works. So visual learners, it's all about creating clear pictures. The auditory learner, needs to be talked through each individual step. Then you got the read and write learners who need to read through instructions carefully, and the kinetic learner is the one that really needs to do something. So I do, in my job, I do a lot of construction sites around South Wales and the southwest of England. And what I like to do when I turn up on site, I like to give a 10-15-minute presentation before the site starts that morning on a different topic. We call them a SMART objective. And it's behind what we also call the why campaign. So why do you need to know about construction dust? So when I'm explaining this presentation, the whole thought process about explaining construction dust, rather than me walking site and asking someone to put a face mask on, I want to explain to them what's happening to your lungs. So I've done this presentation in Bath, a place called Holborn Park. It's a new housing development. And there's a lot of stonemasons in there that day doing the Bath stone. So they were there in that presentation. So afterwards, they all left, and the supervisor stayed behind, and he said, "I'm not sure how you just done that." I said, what do you mean? He said, so at the end of the presentation, I asked 6 questions just to see if they understood what I was talking about. I asked things like, so what's the 8-hour legal limit you can take for silica dust, which is 0.1 milligrams per cubic meter? And 5 other questions. And there's a young boy at the front who answered all questions. The rest of the team let him answer it, and I was happy enough that he understood the presentation. So he said, that young boy, he said, we do inductions, we do daily briefings, we do toolbox talks, and nothing ever sticks, he says. Nothing. We can't get him to remember anything. He just sat in our presentation and answered all those 6 questions afterwards. He said, what do you do? I said, it's quite simple. He's a visual learner. So I said, if you understand your people, understand the style of learning, you read into him, it's not going in. It wouldn't go into me. He needs to see. So it's very, very important, I think, that we understand how people need to be trained and explain things. Just some other facts on autism, unfortunately, does drive a higher suicide rate. It's not a good topic to talk about, and 70 to 80% of autistic individuals do experience mental health problems. And unfortunately, 80% they reckon of autistic adults aren't in work as well. Something I've been really lucky with. I've never actually missed a day. I've never actually had a sick day, but I do find myself fortunate with that start. So some celebrities we know about with different neurodivergent. Greta Thunberg, she's known around the world for her headstrong environmental activism. She describes her diagnosis as a superpower and says it helped her get the support that she needed. She's obviously got autism. Daniel Radcliffe, he's known for being the lead in Harry Potter films. He's opened up about living with OCD and dyspraxia. Condition that affects movement and coordination. So when talking about his conditions, he encouraged others to seek professional help if you need assistance with living with any neurological conditions. Richard Branson, and this one seems quite common with CEOs. He's got dyslexia and ADHD. I think what it does do is gives you a lot of visionary parts to him. He dropped out of school at 15, started his first company at 16, and as we all know, he's achieved many great feats across various industries. And more recent ones, so this was only a couple of weeks ago. It was only on 20th July 2024. Jessie J has revealed she was diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and OCD. And again, it does make you do that reflection, and she's done the same. She's had a bit of a rethink her whole life. She now sees it also as a superpower, as long as you look at it from the right perspective. So what barriers? So I think what this talk is about really is that we lose a lot of people really, and construction particularly. Construction needs a lot of youngsters, a lot of people to come into the environment. And putting barriers in place, we might be losing a lot of good talent. And there's a lot of neurodivergent individuals may face several barriers. Sensory sensitivities, so bright lights, loud noises, and crowded spaces can be overwhelming. I'm all right with lights, it's the loud noises for me. Communication difficulties. So even some, without realizing it, companies will have their own sort of little communication things that happen without even having set rules. So there could be challenges with interpreting social cues or express themselves verbally. It can be inflexible work routines, misunderstanding by colleagues and management due to differences in cognitive processing. There could be a lack of understanding from others, lack of support. Back to this sort of psychological safety, really. Shortage of knowledgeable staff, so people don't understand differences of people, and a fear of discrimination, concerns about being discriminated against by management or colleagues, which may prevent disclosure of the conditions. There was a case, so under the Equality Act 2010, Aberhart versus University of Bristol, and it was an oral assessment which led to a suicide. It's a tragic case. It just really shows the importance of it. The university was held liable under the Equality Act. It insisted on continuing the oral assessments of a physics student who had depression, social anxiety disorder. She actually committed suicide on the day when she was to be part of a group being assessed. Conference presentation. High Court upheld a county court decision awarded £50,000 in compensation. So father brought on his case after her death on behalf of her estate. Natasha was a physics undergraduate at Bristol University. It was her second year. It wasn't in the original remit, but she was asked to give assessed oral interviews, and it was just too much for her to cope with. Her mental health swiftly declined. She was also told she would already have been expected to participate actively in a conference presenting with fellow students. It wasn't something she was comfortable with, and unfortunately she took her own life. So yeah, under the Equality Act, the High Court upheld the county court decision. The university was liable for disability discrimination, failure to make reasonable adjustments, just making those small adjustments. And what we will see as we go through these slides, a lot of adjustments in the workplace won't cost nothing, or very limited or low cost. Some key stats from research on neurodivergent employees by CIPD. So 20% of neurodivergent employees have experienced harassment or discrimination at work. Only 52% of neurodivergent employees feel the company has an open and supportive climate. 33% say the experience of work has had a negative impact on their mental well-being. So neurodivergent employees are more likely to feel exhausted, feel under excessive pressure, actually be lonely at work. So what we do know from our society now is a bit of a throwaway society. Things aren't made for long term, and it's really about the mindset of quick fixes, extends beyond material goods and into the way we treat people. So neurodiversity refers to the natural variants we now know in the human brain. So for my own autism, I know that I'm wired slightly different. I haven't actually been given the book of how to navigate life. One example of that, in our old office space, there used to be a poster in the toilet, and it actually says, it's just interesting really in how you frame things, even from a safety or a message environment. And so in the toilet, it actually stated, only toilet paper to go down the toilet. I think what they actually meant was people were putting the blue hand wipes down there. From an autism point of view, I'm now thinking to myself, oh, you just asked someone to probably pee on the floor. So it's just, obviously I've learned enough in life to understand that's not what they're trying to say, but the message was only toilet paper to go down the toilet, which was a bit unclear really. There's obviously a cost of overlooking neurodiverse talent. When we fail to recognise and value the abilities of neurodiverse individuals, we miss out on a wealth of potential talent. As we now know, significantly more likely to be unemployed compared to neurotypical people. overall neurodivergent adults can be as high as 30 to 40%. I know there's one tech company in America, and they work on software before it goes to market. And they said that the rate of failure is 5%, and this company's rate is 0.5. Because their rate is so good, they actually they're more expensive, but companies know if we go to them, when it goes to market, it's more or less going to be spot on. And they actually employ almost 100% neurodiverse and autism people. They know that attention to detail is going to be there. They know that they're not going to be chatting throughout the day because they just want to crack on with the work, and they get fantastic rates. So there can be huge benefits in employing people. It's all about knowing your workforce. I think this should be every sort of leader's responsibility. I think Simon Sinek, he has a great quote. He said, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. So it's great for organizations to really know individuals. Neurodivergent individuals will have some specific needs. They might not want to disclose them, which is another interesting topic, for fear of discrimination. But being neurodivergent should not be considered as deficit, simply a difference in the way that people process the world around them. So things that we can do, some small steps, do make a big difference. So create a psychological safety. I know I started with that, but it's so, so important for my own well-being. Having that team around me that creates that psychological safety is just huge. It's all about encourage open discussions about differences, implement training if need be in the company to raise awareness. You can make reasonable adjustments. It don't cost that much. Quiet areas, noise cancelling devices, accessible work projects, provide clear instructions, making people really aware of what is needed, remove that ambiguity, establish neurodiverse networks, try to set up mentoring programs, specialists or advisory sessions to support neurodivergent employees. It's all about measures aiming to create a safe, understanding, empowering workplace for all. And again, that will improve morale, mental health, and productivity. So it can involve 3 key stages. It's all about the awareness, which is what we're discussing today. Again, psychological safety keeps coming up as so important, and flexibility and accommodation. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, it was in this month for the latest Centel magazine, and this PAS 6463 is a fantastic document. It is actually there. It's for neurodiversity and the built environment. It's believed to be the first standard developed by a national standard body that provides built environment guidance for multi-sensory processing differences and conditions. It's free to download. It gives some ideas then on how do you create a neurodivergent office or work environment. It's aimed at buildings, external spaces, and environments for public and commercial use, as well as residential accommodation for independent supported living. It's equally applicable to any organisation anywhere in the world, irrespective of location, size, type, or sector. It's quite a big document, but it gives some good guidance in it. So some environmental adjustments can be declutter walls, corridors, notice boards for less distracting environment, choosing calming colours, maintain a consistent layout. I know I like to know where I'm sitting. I don't really mind hot desk, but I just need to know where I am sitting. Lowering lighting levels or providing desk lamps, creating a quiet area or space, something that we've got here at Green Hat, a little, where I'm sitting stage, a little breakout room. The sensory adjustments, it could be noise cancelling headphones. I know I'm on the spectrum for clothing without seams or labels. So sometimes you've got to cut them out. Provide fidget items or pens. Adjust brightness and contrast on monitors. So little tiny touches, but in a work environment can make a massive difference. Again, the actual work environment itself, flexible working hours, can work for neurodivergent people. Strategic desk placement, different distractions, noise can be distractive, light. So just positioning where safe for the person, desk dividers, remote work options, consistent seating. I think I touched on that one. A window desk placement, individual preferences for distractions. Communications. I'm very big on meetings. When I go into a meeting, I really need to know what's going to be discussed. Other things can be step-by-step guidance, walk through scenarios, jargon-free explanations, extended time allowance, allow more time for reading and understanding materials. Dyslexia-friendly materials are out there, which is great, provided by the British Dyslexia Association. As I said, meetings, it's great to have advanced communications. In my old job, I was a print department manager. I used to go to meetings. I had no idea what the agenda was. Didn't really get involved because couldn't comprehend what was going on. So adherence to agenda is really important. Preparation, sometimes a buddy system. You can pair neurodivergent individuals with a colleague for support during larger meetings. Considerate seating. Allow regular breaks. So I know after a certain amount of time, I'll be switching off. So it's great to schedule in a break or not let the meeting go on too long. It's a question here then, can I legally ask if someone is neurodivergent during the hiring process? And in simple terms, no. The Equality Act 2010, neurodivergence is often considered disability, even if an individual like myself does not clearly identify as disabled. So therefore, asking about neurodivergence and receiving disclosure could be discriminated. So it's all about really trying to understand people, get to know them, and you will get to know the different so specific support needs they may need. What we do know, promoting neuro inclusion can help organizations attract a diverse range of talent, which is obviously excellent for business. I think any business does need a different diversity range. I think a lot of companies realize this now. But if you go down one track, one thought process, it can be an absolute disaster. They actually picked up on this by a writer called Matthew Seed, ex-British and Commonwealth Games table tennis champion. In Black Box Thinking, he explained how the FBI had the 9/11 attacks so wrong because they kept employing people to look into potential terrorists, and they were all the same gender type. And they since realized they should have been thinking as the terrorist was thinking. So you could having diversity of thought is so powerful in every sort of organization. Recruitment process is another one really, which we should bear in mind for neurodiversity. Why not give them the questions you're going to be asking beforehand? Give them an opportunity to run through. So a lot of people will fail on that sort of job interview who might be so well suited to the job just because they can't get themselves across in the right manner. I'm going to be a disaster in that interview for eye contact. I've got to work so hard on it. It does drain me. Body language, eye contact, I might fail, but actually it's just part of my condition. So yeah, consider sending interview questions in advance. Choose clear and concise questions. I again do struggle in things which aren't precise. I've done my NEBOSH. I've done both few NEBOShes, but if I'm honest, I did struggle with NEBOShes. The wording not quite suited to how my actual thought process is. It's all about cultivating an inclusive culture. People are valued for who they are, can authentically be themselves, will obviously unlock potential, attract diverse talent, and do wonders for the company. So strengths. So if we turn the narrative from looking at people's weaknesses with neurodiversity and look at these strengths, so they can have exceptional problem-solving skills, be creative, and have a lot of innovation. So a lot of of what we see as disabilities can bring so many strengths to a company. Like we now know with autism, can give fantastic attention to detail. This is why software companies will even actually employ a lot of autism people, because they know they're going to spend. I actually walked a site not so long ago. It was a new housing development with a groundwork supervisor on a health and safety visit, and he's explaining to me that he had a chat with a operator, and he told him how many passes on a roller to go over some hardcore just to dampen down some stone. And he walked away and he said, I don't know what it is. He said, but that boy's got autism. I said, all right, yeah. What does that mean for you? Oh, he said, I just asked him to do a job there. If I asked anybody else in the company, I just asked him to do 50 passes on a roller. If I asked anybody else, I'd have anything from 20 to 100. I know with him 50 passes. So he actually didn't know what autism was, but he knew that it gave him a strength. You know, he would stick to the script. He would do what was asked of him. So yeah, strong focus and concentration. So some neurodiverse individuals can maintain intense focus on tasks. The ability is particularly beneficial in roles that require deep concentration. Pattern recognition. So again, a lot of neurodiverse individuals can look at numbers and find some fascinating patterns. You get honesty, integrity, you get resilience and determination, and you can get specialist knowledge. I kind of understood from the early days that learning every king and queen of Britain was not going to keep me in the workplace, so I kind of changed my memory sort of mindset to learning all about different legislations. I got my CDM regs stored, I got my pure regs stored, I got my Lola regs. I've got every sort of PP, so I could quote every BS number of PP from high vis is 20471, hard at is BSEN 397, because that's what's going to keep me in a job. So Steve Jobs had a great quote. He said, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, you can disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see geniuses, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Temple Grande, she's an autism advocate in America. She does amazing things in designing. And she said, when the cave people were around the fire, staring at the fire, it was probably the autism person that was actually away making the spear. So everyone's got a different skill you can add to a workplace. So embracing the future. So if you have an unusual thinking in life, in your company, in your team, nurture them, nurture their strengths. Don't look at their weaknesses, look at their strengths and their genius. Gently help, support them to overcome any challenges and barriers to bring their differences to life. Enable people to navigate their way in a sometimes disproving world. Celebrate difference. I don't think we do this enough. I think we see difference as a barrier, but you should celebrate difference. We wouldn't have a world if we weren't all different. And what makes people unique? Encourage and support people to be authentic, to flourish in the work environment. Many accommodations designed for neurodivergent individuals like to be universal accommodations to benefit everyone. So everyone in the company will probably benefit. And that's what inclusive managers do. I am at the end of my slides. If there's any questions, I'm more happy to answer them.
Hiya, Paul. Thank you very much. I finally made it.
Hi, Rand.
Hiya, buddy. That was absolutely fantastic. And we do have a couple of questions. That was fantastic. And you were fantastic on your knee, Bosch.
Yeah, you took my knee, Bosch. Yeah, you did, yeah.
You were fantastic on it.
But the reason I passed it, you made a visual room, didn't you?
I made it a visual. I put all the images up on the wall, mate. Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly what I need. I often think back to my geography lessons at school where there was nothing on the wall, and they tried to explain to me where France is. I thought, just put a map up. I could see it.
No, we put everything up, mate. I remember that. That was a good while ago, but you were fantastic. Right, we've got a couple of questions. Autism masking. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that for us?
Yeah, I think everyone with autism will mask. It's because we haven't had that manual for life, really. When you get your fridge delivered, you get a manual with it. An autism person has arrived in a world, literally come out of the Amazon rainforest, really, without how do you get through this life? So you end up from a very young age, realize I need to copy other people. I sometimes don't know why people do certain things, but I know I've got to copy them to survive. It's quite draining, to be honest. And I've got certain jobs I now do on a Friday, believe it or not, because it's so draining. Some Fridays I go down West Wales and do 5 or 6 different inspections. It's small little inspections, so much interaction. I know it's going to ruin me. I'm going to be drained. Yeah. So I do on Friday, knowing I got Saturday to recover. So maskings are very draining. If you take it off, though, I've tried to take it off and I just don't function. So I need to maintain it. I think we all mask to a certain extent. I think even neurotypical people do mask. We're all slightly different in work environment to how we are outside of work. I think, but we take it to the extreme. We actually survive by masking.
Amazing. I'm gonna push you again for one more on that, because I was listening to what you said about eye contact draining you, and I think you've just answered the question. But you obviously mean physically draining you, then, mate. Yeah,
physically draining you. It's just not something I'm comfortable with. Very difficult to explain. It kind of looks as if you're being rude or not engaging. It's just that. And if I try and I can overdo it, so I gotta be careful. So you stare at me. So
don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep on me now, mate. Right. So.
No, but yeah, it's a really difficult one to explain. But eye contact is just not comfortable with it. It seems as if body language wise, you can seem as if he's got something to hide. It's nothing like that. It's just really uncomfortable in looking someone straight in the eye, believe it or not. I'm also an awful hugger and dreadful hugger.
And I'm a big hugger. I'm a big hugger.
I'm like stone if you hug me. I just.
Right, we got another one here. Why do people use a memory palace? So talk us about a memory palace.
Yeah, so the memory palace, believe it or not, has been around from Greek times. I think it was before we even started to read or write. So people used to go from village to village telling stories. It would have even happened in Britain. And obviously these people couldn't read or write. So the way they memorize these stories is using what's called the memory palace. If you ever got good enough when you ended up in the World Memory Championships, they all use the same style.
Yeah.
They're all using the memory palace. It can be a bit of a cheat when you know how the memory palace works. It's literally just getting a route that you're familiar with and plant in certain pictures and items in it, and you can memorize phenomenal amount of data. I'm more than willing to ever do a session if somebody wanted to learn certain BS numbers. I realize I could go on too much on it and bore people, but I can explain to you how to memorize different parts for your role.
So basically, you take BS to the next level.
Yeah, I've done a lot of BS numbers stored.
There's another question. I think it's from Lisa from PCR. Actually, can you share or re-mention to the initial assessment? I obviously missed the start. Did you put a little initial assessment in to do for people to do? Is that what Lisa's on about? Can you share the link or re-mention to the initial assessment? If not, we can catch up.
I think what might be alluded to, and is at the start I said, as part of my autism diagnosis, there was an online test done.
Yeah, that's what Lisa's mentioning there.
Yeah, I can forward that on too. It's a Cambridge test. It asks you 50 questions. Things like, do you like the theatre? Do you like museums? Do you like people's company? Do you like being on your own? And it kind of gets them measure for what type of personality and will you be on the autism spectrum, really.
Yeah.
It is a good pointer, to be honest.
There you are. If we can drop that onto the LinkedIn page as well.
Yeah.
So when you put your original post out, then the guys can grab it from there. We've got
Yeah.
another question from Anna. Having just started a new job, the ability to retain people's names would be great. I struggle with that massively, right? Would the room work for this? So would the memory palace room?
100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I do it. If you look at me, Paul Bald. So if you want to remember, it's just linking something to that person
Yeah.
to the name. So you could have it to rhyme. Yeah, I've had to do with them. I go to some clients and they got two Johns. So I don't want to really say too much in case they're listening, but I kind of link the hairstyles to the surname. But it's the memory palace is perfect for remembering names like that. If I went through the very quickly the American presidents, so the way I learn American presidents, I'm going on a journey today. I'm going to Cardiff Airport, go on a flight. I'm being picked up by a taxi. In the front of the taxi is Jaws, and he's washing himself loads with soap. So Jaws is George, and he's washing himself loads, Washington, George Washington.
Fantastic.
John is someone who sits on a toilet. So the second president is John. It's an Adam's apple, so it's Adams. So it's John. John's a toilet. So yeah, very simple. Tom's tank is Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
Yeah, James tends to be a gun because after James Cagney. So James, if you see a gun, it's James. So yeah, very simple process. I'm more than happy to share a session with that.
Is that John? Is that John Quincy Adams?
He's the second. He's the son.
Yeah. Can you remember his leadership quote?
His quote: "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, become more, you are a leader."
Nailed it, mate. We didn't even rehearse that.
No, I didn't rehearse that. No.
No, fantastic. Listen, it's 13:55. I'm gutted. I'm sorry. Apologies for missing the first part, Paul. Listen, you're a top man. I've always said that. You're one of the most helpful people I know. I never knew you would. I don't even know if you perceive anything as a barrier. I don't know, man. I didn't know that before. So even though we've interacted before many times, you're just a fabulous human being. So to think that you have been navigating potentially what you've been navigating, I think it's just an absolute credit, mate. Would you, just something personally for me, would you, when you think of, I deal a lot with, CEOs, large companies, and the pace of life, the pace of business is fast. And the majority of people, unfortunately, they haven't got the time to wait for people, right? Which we know is wrong, right? If we just had more time and invested more in people, like you've said in your slides, we would get more out of people.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part that I foresee with anybody is that, because what I was going to ask you was, you mentioned masking. I suppose people are going to be in that space of, am I neurodivergent? Am I not? They've got to live through that first, haven't they, to think about getting the diagnosis. And then, I know full well I've been involved in companies whereby it's, well, where is the diagnosis? We're not going to do anything until there is a diagnosis, right? Because we also know, much like the PTSD, people jump on a wagon. We know that. We know CEOs, we know big companies, we know people who've got to make things. We know they think that, right? So I think it's just got to be probably one of the hardest things for anybody to do is say put themselves through it. It's going to be different from everybody, isn't it? But it is to decide to want to go and have that assessment.
Yeah, yeah. Mine was just because I had so many struggles in life. And if I told you some of my weaknesses, you'd be shocked. I've never cooked in my life. I've never paid a bill. I went from my mother to my wife. My wife pays it. I don't even know how the finances work. I got zero interest in money. I actually have a Revolut card, which my wife puts money on.
Yeah.
So behind the scenes, my wife is she sorts my clothes out. Sometimes when I give a presentation on mental and explain that. She said, "Oh, she didn't do a very good job, mate, does she?" But she sorted my clothes out.
Oh, bless.
A lot of weaknesses, but I think understanding yourself is so powerful. But yeah, it's difficult. Even when you self-diagnose, it took me almost 3 years to get the official diagnosis. Some waiting list for ADHD at the moment is 6 years. And they actually probably need it more because they can have medication where I can't. So they could actually be helped via medication.
Well, that's something I didn't know. I didn't know what you. I think just listening to this session, I suppose like everybody else who's watched or listened, or those who didn't watch and listen, there's another million questions. I think if you're willing, after it'd be great to put something together, mate, with those questions, because listening to what you've just said is very, very helpful. Very, very helpful for me. Just reading something from Paul. Let's have a look. Yeah, very interesting, useful session. Thank you. Made some notes. I was gonna take up on your suggestions. Fantastic. It's really, really positive. Well,
it's great. See there's around access to work assessments. That's a great one. That is. So a lot of neurodiverse staff can actually get back into the workplace without costing companies. So access to work will pay for their wages. So you could have to lose really.
So what is access to work? What's that? What is that?
3 months. Somebody that can't get paid employment, they might have autism, they might just struggle in the interview process. But what you might find, they come into your company and they could be so good at a certain task. It doesn't actually cost you anything. The government pays, they'll even pay the traveling, I believe. I think it just access to work is a fantastic scheme.
I don't even know about it, so that doesn't say much about me, mate. So I think we need to, have another chat after this. Have another few sessions. I'll be keeping my eye on what shirt you wear next time, and if it's been well ironed.
Yeah, see if it's any good. Give some feedback.
Well, Paul, from me to everybody who's listening, thank you very much. I can see some other lots of chat in the online chat, which is fantastic, and access to work has been dropped in there. I think, Paul, if you don't mind, we'll have a little get together after this in the next week and try and just do a little. Maybe another chat, but definitely we'll publish some questions and answers, because I want them myself, mate. That would be really
brilliant.
Good. And
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. If nobody else has got anything, it's 2:00. Paul, you set all this up. This is what you want to talk about, mate. I'm really, really, really glad you did. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the support, and you're a fantastic bloke. You push through everything. So that's from me to you. Thank you very much. So that's it. Unless anybody's got anything else to say, we shall let you know when the next session is. Thank you very much. Thanks, Paul.